Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point. This evening with a distinguished panel we'll be discussing the region, specifically focusing on the situation in Syria. Turkish intervention, according to Syria, is strongly present. What will be the future of Syria, and more importantly, how will it reflect on the rest of this region, will be under discussion this evening. With us this evening, Her Excellency Ambassador Haggar Islambouly, who is a former Assistant Foreign Minister and member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Relations. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
With us also this evening, Dr. Hassam, Wagih, Professor of Linguistics and Political Science at Al-Azhar University. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is Syria, or what more importantly, is Turkey aiming at? It seems that when you close the door on one side, it tries to open the door on the other side. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like Turkey is planning to coexist peacefully within this region. Or am I too harsh in my description? Well, it's not a diplomatic description. So.
But it's true. It's true. It's a fact. They have their interests, and what Turkey is doing to Syria is influenced by the Turkish position vis-à-vis the Kurdish problem, and they have a serious problem. The Kurds in Turkey. Almost 20 million people of the population of Turkey. So you can understand why are they doing that, and what are their aims in Syria. Destabilizing Syria, destabilizing the political system in Syria works better for the Turkish. To divide. Well, of course, yes. To divide.
Is it to divide and create another homeland, or is it because they're ambitious about the recreation of an Ottoman Empire? Because it seems that Turkey wants the Ottoman Empire, Iran wants the Persian Empire, and this is the battleground for the reincarnation of those old empires.
Well, you've said it correctly. Yes, everybody's looking for holding a regional position in the region, the major player. They are all players in the region, but they are not the only players. They overlook the Egyptian position, the Egyptian weight in the Middle East. They overlook the Saudis. They overlook all the Arab countries in the world. So that's the main problem. What you see now with all these destabilizing forces in the Arab region is a major change in the whole scenery. We lack an security architecture in the region.
Everyone's saying this. When will this I'm not very distinct to you, that's what I'm saying. When will we have this architect, at least, that will create this map, this blueprint, when are we going to realize that it is grave?
Well, I guess everybody now understands well that it's very grave, the region, the lack of a security setting up in the region. The problem is who's included in the region. So to create such an architecture, you have first to have the Arab part of the Middle East come together to a consensus on building a real setting for cooperation to maintain security in the whole region. Before you start talking to the other players of the region, then you will have Turkey, you will have Iran, you will have Israel as well. You will have Ethiopia on the southern part of Egypt. So it's very important to have this in mind and to work towards that objective. How much consensus do we have remains to be seen. We're seeing changes in different Arab countries around. New trends are coming up. A new generation is being responsible for the decision-making process in Saudi Arabia and different other countries in the region. So this gives us hope that they could understand the dynamic forces of the world, the global scenery right now. it gives us a chance to build up something, as you mentioned, you're always referring to an architect. It gives a chance to that. Building the Arab forces was one of them.
And we failed.
Well, we're still working on it. We're still working on it. These things don't just emerge just like that.
The decision was taken to build a unified Arab
Yes, we are still working on it.
in March 2015. This was almost a year ago. That's why I'm saying
yes.
every month, not every month, but every day there is an escalation. And how long can we sustain or continue to sustain the situation on ground? We raised a number of issues. Maybe I'll want to tackle them more, but before we do so, let's get Dr. Hassam Wagih's point of view on the issue.
Actually, I'd like to start out by paying my condolences to Boutros Ghali.
Yes.
Pay condolences to ourselves and to the world.
Yes.
And starting with this, I would use his terminology, which is very important, preventive diplomacy. The word preventive diplomacy was his coinage, and he wrote a very big piece, and it's being studied all over the world. He was, for all of us who know him, he was an international law and international relation great expert.
Yes.
And the other word, I'm going to use it as key words for my presentation, is the active diplomacy and collective diplomacy. So when we are talking about preventive diplomacy, yes, as you have already clarified, especially in your last statement, let us remember that the pace is so quick, the pace is so unbelievable. The whole world events are running with a very high pace. And we have to cope up with this pace, because when we are talking about preventive diplomacy, we could have done that 5 years ago. But at least when we have a crisis, any crisis could be manageable if we already do our assignments, our work, and our moves.
Yes.
But if we are latecomers, it is becoming non-manageable crisis. And I'm afraid that we are getting into the gate of non-manageable crises. Non-manageable crises because of the rashness of the people who did not learn from the lessons of the world. Like, for instance, let us, first of all, let us see how the crisis is so complicated and how alliance game is being complicated, the whole scene for us, the whole situation. We have in game theory alliance games and adversary games. You can see adversary game, Israel and Turkey played adversary game 2 years ago. Now they are playing the alliance game. And now Russia and Hafiz al-Assad and Bashar al-Assad are playing another alliance game with the Iranians, with Hezbollah. And you have the Saudis and the Gulf countries who really have a great stake in what's taking in Syria, and they have fears, and their fears could move them. And we have Turkey with ambition, and we have Russia with ambitions, and we have the United States, which is playing a very unbelievable role. I cannot describe it. They are relaxing the rope, helping here and there. They are not decisive. They are out of the scene.
Are they not decisive, or are they just letting it happen?
Yeah, this is the part of the case. This is being managed that way.
They're sitting back and watching.
Exactly. If you can see,
You have to do your job. You don't wait for
first of all, there was and there are so many wars. Especially, we can say that the dirty war, which is against Daesh and Daesh, what is Daesh is doing. But the oil war is there. From the very early stages of Islamophobia, I wrote an article entitled the Economic Roots of Islamophobia. The whole thing is coverage. So here you have oil war. There is an oil war. The oil war started by inciting Saudi Arabia to produce much more oil so as to embarrass the Soviet Union at the very beginning. And then the Soviet Union moved not from Russia, moved to Syria to run the battle for gas and for oil and for a strategic position near the Mediterranean. And then you got in this, the Americans now playing, after having incited Saudis to produce a lot of oil, to embarrass the United States. Now they are embarrassing Saudi Arabia indirectly by having this shale oil. Shale oil. The United States is deducting its reliance on Saudi Arabia and the Gulf oil more than 50% from 2005 till now. So this is another war, which is get into the deep heart of the budgets of the Gulf countries. And this is like draining these countries. And opening France by enhancing this case theory, sedition, insinuations, etc. There's so many parts, not by the remaining of what we have now. I think that we need very much to be careful that Saudi Arabia will not open another front, because history tells us this. All history, when the United States opened the Vietnam, it became quagmire and they lost. When they opened the Afghanistan, it was a quagmire and it was a threat and they lost. And everyone who is really facing the situation in terms of military intervention only, especially when it comes with some ideological nuisance, I think that this is a trap you should avoid now. We should avoid this to make the crisis manageable. Because if there are ground forces got into the scene, which is so complicated enough, and nobody knows who is who. Like, for instance, the United States, according to the strategic thinker Friedman, not the New York Times, no, the strategic one, the futurist, they said that Turkey is the hand of the United States in the Islamic world. When Erdogan is playing this game, now there is a conflict now between U.S. and the Turkey also, because of the shelling of the Kurdish defense units. They call it YGP. This is the word abbreviation from Kurdish language, which is the units which defends the Kurdish people. This group is supported by the Syrian system, and supported by Americans, and supported by Russians, and Turkey considers it terrorist group, terrorist militia. So, and everyone is talking about he has a stake, and he has a hand, and he has an intake into what Daesh is doing, and there is communication, hidden communication. Some people say Hafiz al-Assad is deploying Daesh factor, and the Turkish says, and the Russian says that the Turkish are doing crimes by helping Daesh, and this is why you are here. And the victim is the Syrian people. It's so complicated. It's getting more complicated. I hope that the Arab leaders and the international leaders all over the world would understand that non-manageability of this crisis would get everyone into the zero-sum track.
Dr. Ambassador Haggar, you said that within this region we need an architect to design a security system, so to speak. Can Egypt be this architect? The reason I'm saying Egypt is because, well, we've always enjoyed a pivotal role in this region. We're now heading the UN Committee for Combating and Confronting Terrorism. So this gives you a role not only regionally but on an international scale. Can we orchestrate this plan, or more important, it's not can, but should we be the ones that are orchestrating this plan?
Well, we should be the one to develop a strategy towards this end, and I think we have bits and pieces, and we used to think that creating an architect of security in the region could follow the European example, and so on. So there are examples in history that we can follow, but our problem, when we talked firstly about the architect of security, it was meant for the whole Middle Eastern countries. That's what I had in mind. That because we have to decide what to do with Israel, what to do with Turkey, Iran, and so on and so forth. But before we have this as a second stage, we have to decide for ourselves as Arabs. Unfortunately, the evolution that's taking place in the Arab world after different revolutions and different uprisings and so on have made this an urgent matter, have brought terrorism at the forefront of the agendas in the Arab world. We're still working within the Arab League on developing an Arab consensus on different points and different crises, as Dr. Hassam mentioned. We are trying to develop an Arab position towards every problem. But what we see in Syria, as he exactly mentioned, the tapestry of what we're seeing in the whole region is very annoying because everybody is fighting against everybody.
But the problem is not, in Dr. Hassan's statement, maybe what really is kind of an issue of concern is not just Turkey and Iran. Because Turkey and Iran meddling or Israel or even the United States going for meddling in the region for its own interests, well, you cannot blame an outsider for trying to capitalize on your weakness or
Exactly. That's the problem.
but the dangerous thing is that over the past 5 years since the alleged Arab Spring hit us, it doesn't seem like we've learned the lesson because we amongst ourselves are being manipulated into subdivisions which we can't afford right now. And this goes back to what you were saying, the joint security framework. How can you do a joint security framework when we're on different sides of the fence?
Well, we have to work on that. We have to work on that with the different parties around, the partners, Arab countries and all the region. But we have to do that. And the Egyptian side will be the one leading. And we have been leading that into ideas and so on. But we're facing serious changes in the region that maybe have pushed that aside. Coming back to Syria, because Dr. Hassam mentioned very interesting comments about the Syrian situation there. We have, referring to the United States is leading an effort now trying to calm the situation between the Russians and the Turks on Syria. They are asking Putin and Erdogan to meet and discuss that calmly, as if people are not dying, as if Syria is not being destroyed all around. That's one thing. On the other side, you have the Saudis are saying that we will not get into Syria except under the leadership of the Americans. Ground forces. And as you see, the Americans are not very much interested on ground forces issues.
I think they learned a lesson in that.
They learned a lesson.
They will not repeat the same.
So they are asking everybody, calm down everybody, and let's talk.
They can't justify to the
some of the, what we're seeing now are political maneuvers that are going around between different parties, because now we have to sit on the table for negotiations. The situation in Syria will not be solved except on the table. So each party is trying to prepare the setting for his chair on the table by changing dynamics on the ground, and that's what the Syrian government is doing and the Syrian army is doing. They are gaining back the situation in Hims and Halab, all around Damascus, all around Laziqiyah, and so on. So this is in preparation for sitting on the table. This agreement has taken place in the meetings in Munich, before in Vienna. So all what you're seeing now is preparing the setting of the coming negotiations between the different parties.
Why should do you think the negotiations will lead to anything fruitful?
History teaches us that what happens on the ground will be reflected on the
Because no negotiations or any issue in this region.
So let me say something. My worry is that ground troops, either from Saudi Arabia, from Emirates, from Turkey, from wherever, will lead to the destroy of Syria as we know it. What we have to take care is that territorial integrity of the Syrian, that it's not Bashar al-Assad, it's the Syrian people, it's Syria itself, which we are all very much interested in. And I think getting troops on the ground will deteriorate the whole situation, and we will have a division of land, of Syrian land, between the different forces. You'll have the Russians and the Syrian government, and you will have others in different parts, starting with the Kurdish.
How will this be different from the situation in Iraq? Because now you have 3 Iraqs in one. Is that not the case? Have we not reached a stage where Iraq, one of the powers of this region, is being subdivided? Or
the question is, will we as Arabs be happy with such a solution? To have another Iraq in Syria, or to have another Libya in Syria?
Or another Sudan in Syria?
Well, Sudan, Bashir seems to control his seat quite well.
But it's been divided.
It's been divided.
Definitely it's not stronger than what it was.
Of course.
It's not stronger than what it was, but again, we have to blame politicians of the results that happened and that took place in Sudan. So we're coming back to Syria because Sudan is another issue. Syria is very important.
But from Bashir to Bashar, there is some kind of...
Bashir is the same Shia, the same Shia.
And I'm just saying that what the fear of another, because it seems, the gist I'm getting from what you're saying is that we're heading for another scenario which will echo what has been taking place in Iraq, what took place in Sudan. Maybe Sudan it's official, Iraq it's not official yet, Syria on the way, Libya on the way.
Yes.
And we have to count on the next meeting of the Arab League, which is coming in March.
I'll let Dr. Hassam answer that.
Well, he has an opinion. Well,
I know that the Arab League has to play a role, of course.
I mean, Arab leaders are coming together in Morocco, end of February, end of March, and April. There is an Arab summit in Morocco. So I think
that's a follow-up to the previous summit.
this is the annual
Which it
summit.
was decided to hold the Joint Arab Force.
Yeah. Yes, but
Takes time, but time is of essence, as Dr. Hassam said. We need people to
Can we rely that in the Arab League, because if I look at the environment last March, definitely the subdivisions, at least on the surface, were less. Now it seems that the subdivisions are more, we're back to where we were maybe before the Arab Spring, in terms of we're not really communicating very well.
the role of active diplomacy along with crisis management.
So you changed the preventive diplomacy.
It's not preventive. Now we're in a crisis.
No, preventive is that you can anticipate the crisis and prevent it from the very beginning. But in the same crisis, there is a level of prevention to prevent it from getting to be non-manageable track. It is difficult.
Do you think we have reached in this region the awareness, the leadership of this region? Is it aware that really we are reaching the stage where going back will be very difficult?
I think if I'm not, because I'm Egyptian and I am supporting what Egypt did as a move to save the Arab world from a ground chaos game, I think we have to market the Egyptian position.
But it's not enough on its own.
It's not enough at all, but at least I'm saying when I say marketing this role means this is a software needed by all other people who really wants and care to manage this crisis. Like, we have to understand words like synergy. Synergy is to manage diversity and to manage things which are different parts and different orientations, and I think we have to raise that the basic maxim of crisis management, which is it could be worse. This is why when I'm talking about the Egyptian situation, we did not like very much long time ago to intervene into the internal affairs of Syria, despite the fact that we are against what's happening in Syria, despite the fact that everybody is really felt sick and tired of what's happening. But again, this is a regime that is there. You like it or you dislike it. Removal of it now is very difficult from a crisis management-wise thinking, because if you remove the regime now, it would be much more chaos.
Like Libya.
Exactly. It's at least, let us say, how can we manage differences in a very serious way?
How can we manage differences?
Actually, let us say, when I hear some Arab politicians say, we wanted to remove Assad, no, I don't want to listen to this. I'd like to bring settlement.
Is this the Arab position? Assad?
Some of the Arab leaders thinking along these lines, some of the statements made in a very critical time of the crisis by prominent people. I don't want to mention them because I respect them as people and as brothers, but I disagree with them totally in their management style when someone in a press conference said, we are going to get him out anyway. It is not your business now. It's much more complicated than that. You shouldn't do this. Actually...
You're not concerned that this is a repetition of the Libyan scenario, for example, and for me as someone standing, I'm not a politician, but as someone standing on the outside, automatically what comes to mind is that we're not really learning. History is not teaching us.
Yeah, actually we have to come back to our senses, or else. But I think that the Egyptian position is doing this, is trying to enhance and consolidate relations with the Gulf countries, and trying not to intervene in the Syrian affairs, and trying to be careful not to use military force by all measures, to use deterrence more than using military force itself. So I think the Arab world has the capabilities of making a very strong negotiating situation by having this military, like we have in Saudi Arabia, a very big maneuver, which is good. I think to show your strength and your ability to defend your rights and to defend your interest is very important. But to take this maneuver to go into the traps is wrong. Because actually the rules are very determined by so many powers. So you don't have to be bulldozed by these powers in vain, and for the sake of those people who are watching out and wants to piss Arab countries against each other. So this is anyone who really belongs to the area would swallow, anyone would gloss over certain things and certain visions and go for the heart of the matter.
Yes. Your Excellency, one thing that came to mind right now when we say how certain outside parties are maneuvering us against each other, Turkey and Iran, excuse me, in the upcoming Arab League meeting or the Arab Summit, do you think there should be some kind of a joint position, especially against Erdogan, taking into account that he's adamant on not leading any peaceful moves? I know that the Egyptian Administrative Court was studying a case to qualify filing a lawsuit in the International Court of Justice against Erdogan and the leader of Qatar for their position or their actions in this region.
I'm not aware of that, no?
Well, but anyway,
I'm not aware of that, really. Now, if we talk about Turkey, we have to bear in mind the internal situation in Turkey right now, the different forces. For example, we had a statement from Ugulu that they will be ready to get in putting boots on the ground in Syria. Then we have another statement from the Turkish army saying that they will never send troops on the ground in Syria. That's very interesting.
People in Syria saying they have ground troops.
Well, they have they've infiltrated 100 persons.
Which means
these are not troops, 100%. These are people working on intelligence issues, training, or something like that. Boots on the ground means military officers, personnel on the ground. So there are other influences within each country that will influence the final decision on what will be done. As I mentioned before, what I see now, everybody's preparing, trying to prepare the stage to have a role in the coming negotiations on the table to influence what's being discussed, either from the Turkish side.
Who's the beneficiary in all this?
Who's the beneficiary? Certainly it's not the Arabs. Certainly it's not the Arabs.
Who's the beneficiary?
Well, if you're doing so, and I'm watching, so benefits are coming on my lap. Huh? Even if I didn't do anything, and I'm not sure they are not doing anything, I'm sure they are playing, because this is the nature of things that happen. And I wouldn't blame them, because they see a ripe ground for maneuvering. Everybody's gaining. The Arabs are losing. We're the losers. And coming back to the Syrian position, I want to say to our Saudi brothers and Saudis are our strategic partners, brothers, and we have strong ties with Saudi Arabia, enough to give us the right to explain for them what we will be facing in case of the immediate collapse of the Syrian government. Nobody's talking about Bashar al-Assad staying forever. The discussions are going now on the transitional part of the settlement of the Syrian. The Egyptian position is that we need a peaceful resolution to happen on the Syrian front. And the Geneva II, the Security Council resolution, has the final steps that should be followed. Transitional period is a must in this area. And I'm sure when Adel Jubair is talking about Bashar will not stay, he's not saying immediately, because he knows the consequences that will happen. But the other position confronting that would be, we leave that to the Syrian people to decide. We have to make the arrangements for a transitional period where we can move to a better track. And I guess a rational analysis would lead all parties to reconsider their positions.
Let me get straight into the point here. Taking into account that Russia has a lot of vested interest in Syria, will Russia allow the collapse of Syria? And should there be an escalation of things on the ground? What will be the Russian position? Well, because there is a fear that World War III will start.
No, it's not World War III, because the Americans and the Russians are talking together, organizing daily military actions and so on, so that we don't face any. So this is not the 60s. So this is not the 60s, guys. This is not the 60s. This is a different world. This is a different world. Who will be dying are the Arabs, are the Muslims, and each one is calling Allahu Akbar, killing the other one. So we have to come to senses and manage the situation a better way.
If this does not happen.
If this does not happen, the Russians, coming to your question, the Russians have made their position quite frank and quite elaborate when they said they will not allow boots on the ground. You see? Just point feeling, huh? They will not allow it, and they have S-30s, they have, I don't know, military equipment to a level that has not been seen in the Middle East. So they will move these
So we don't see how they perform in the Middle East.
Inshallah.
Actually, I'd like to say the tacit diplomacy scenario. Another term. The tacit diplomacy is being operationalized in an unbelievable way. Like you have everyone is talking to the others behind the scene. You have Erdogan is talking to the Israelis, and they have already maybe in few days or few weeks, they will come up in an apparent diplomacy, not a tacit one, when they wanted to rely on their gas. The Turkish want to substitute the boycott made by the Russians to them, and then they wanted a strong ally, and Israel asked them to topple Hamas people from Istanbul and from Ankara and to stop helping them, despite the fact that we have heard about legal conspiracy theory that Erdogan will have some support for those people with the agreement of Israel. But again, all of these are tacit diplomacy, by the way. We don't know anything clear about it. There is misinformation, disinformation, or maybe correct information. It's an information war again. So you have dirty war, you have information war, you have oil war, we have this all type of things. And I think that the Saudis are organizing their attitudes, and the Iranians also care about organizing their attitude with the Saudis regarding the oil war. So they have an interest in, they have a stake. So I think this maneuvers and this moves on the ground, as Ambassador Haggar said.
Do you believe that Turkey will work with Israel against Hamas?
Maybe in politics, they are highly pragmatic.
The Turks are highly pragmatic. Correct.
And of course, I remember the word in Chomsky in his book, The Fateful Triangle. He said that he was attacking Israeli position when he said the target of Israelis is to Ottomanize the Arab world and to work dissecting the Arab world to control it. And the word Ottomanization in 1983, I read it and I felt like Balkanization, whatever you call it.
Who created Hamas?
But I'll continue this. Now the role of Ottomanization is...
it's another word of Balkanization.
...is giving another birth to it. So their cooperation could get into this Ottomanization for the interest of the two parties. Of course, on the account of the Arab world, but the Arab world should not take it in their account, because I think that Egypt diplomacy, and I have said that in so many circumstances and so many other occasions, that Egypt has to have effective and active diplomacy with Iran and with Turkey, despite our differences with the Russians, as we have already shown to the whole world by winning very good position in the international arena. And then, I think we have to...
Dr. Hassam, we have a few minutes left. You raised an important issue, and the communication between Turkey and Israel over Hamas. And that leads me to the question, who created Hamas and what is Hamas?
Of course, there are so many theories and so many scenarios, but actually, I think
there are still theories after what we've been through?
No. Theories which has operationalization on the ground. No, I have read and I have written long time ago in the Sharon doesn't want to negotiate with the moderate Arabs. He has to create fanaticism, extremism, so as to broaden his agenda and operationalize his agenda. So it is very needed for the Israeli purposes to have these violent groups to go for this sedition and the division.
That takes me to, do you think Israel will call for Turkey to eliminate Hamas?
Dina, this is a very difficult question you are putting tonight because conspiracy theory is...
It's not a conspiracy. I'm asking you said this is one of the scenarios you're predicting, and I'm asking you, do you see this feasible? Because some scenarios, well, you can see them happening because it's in the interest. But for the United States to stand by and watch the whole region go into flames, well, it's plausible because the United States came up with the terminology constructive chaos, which is taking place right now. But for Israel,
but it's not constructive anymore. It's not constructive anymore.
And for Israel to call on Turkey to work with Turkey in the destruction of Hamas, when Israel, according to evidence we've seen, control? Why?
Control because they are...
Israel is not controlling Hamas?
No, it is more control on Hamas and more keeping the game Palestine without getting them together. So you're all the time relax and the carrot and the stick and this stuff like that. And when it comes to the creation, of course the creation could be anything from intelligence bodies outside the area, maybe because of good intentions by some people who turned out to be not good intentions and were exploited and put into another trap. And I hope that we all learn from the lessons.
Before we wrap up, maybe I'll get Master Haggar's point of view. Do you see this as a plausible scenario? Turkey and Israel working against Hamas. Do you see Israel working against Hamas? Because since Hamas was created, I can't really see any way it destroyed the Palestinian question rather than...
Well, actually, I think Dr. Hassam meant that there will be strong cooperation between the Israelis and the Turks in the region.
Well, there is strong cooperation.
There is already, and it will move further because they will have to coordinate. Because Turks have an interest, vested interest on the issue of the Kurds. And what you see lately, the military actions taking place on the ground right now, the Kurdish people in the northern part of Syria are backing the Syrian army, Bashar al-Assad's government. And that's what's killing Turkey, trying to push them away from the frontiers between Turkey and Syria. And this is a very important issue for the Turks. Whether they will succeed, they will coordinate with whoever. But coming to the issue of Hamas, which you feel very strongly about it, let me recall that the Hamas was started, what the Israelis started things called Rawabit al-Qura, leagues in different villages around, linking them together in order to divide the Palestinian national movement, in order to have another faction in front of the Fatah people, because Fatah at that time was outside the Palestinians in the northern, in the either in Gaza or in the West Bank. You see, I lost my terminology on the Palestinian issue because now we're talking about a different issue.
Since you mentioned something important. You said you lost your terminology, which means the scenario on the ground in the region did what?
The
tension from the Palestinians.
All this, well, of course. All this benefits the Israeli position on the ground. The Israelis are the happiest in the region right now. And unfortunately, who are paying for that are the Arabs in different countries. Not only the Palestinians, but all the Arabs. It's not only Palestinians, it's Syrians, it's Egyptians, it's Saudis, it's Yemenis, it's Libyans. That's becoming very serious. But that doesn't mean that we're not interested anymore on the Palestinian.
No, this is
the
interested. I'm just saying that unfortunately,
let me mention here that the Egyptian position sees the Palestinian issue as the destabilizing factor in the at the core of the.
I mean, work on it, of course.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately our time is up, but before we wrap up, maybe one thing has to be mentioned and clarified to the viewers, and that is, regardless of the hat they're wearing, all militant groups, regardless of the hat, regardless of their pretext, regardless of their ideology, they all work on one thing, and that is the dismantling and the subdivision of this region. And this will not work, regardless of how they were created, who created them, and under which agenda.
And this will be contained, inshallah.
I'd like to thank you both for your fruitful input. I'd like to thank you, the viewers, and we'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.